Okay, so it's all boiled down to this. The Vancouver Canucks are in a pretty interesting spot heading into the 2024 free agency period. The team wants to get better. They had a pretty good season this year, all things considered, but one of the biggest issues with the Vancouver Canucks was that their depth throughout the lineup was pretty all over the place. Yes, they had some pretty good third-liners in Dakota Joshua, Connor Garland, and Elias Lindholm. They had some pretty good guys in their top six. Brock Boeser, JT Miller, fantastic. Pia Suter was pretty good some nights. But the rest of the lineup was all over the place. Elias Pettersson was good in some moments, terrible in others. You had a cast of line mates for PD rotating between guys like Sam Lafferty, Ilya Mikheyev, Nils Höglander, and a lot of these guys were okay at best and very inconsistent at worst. The Canucks had some forward depth issues, and when it comes to their primary task this offseason, maybe not even primary, it's one of their tasks this offseason, they have to go out there and do a few things. Never mind the defensemen, never mind the decision in net, we have to talk about forwards, because with Ilya Mikheyev on the block, and with Elias Lindholm most likely leaving, it opens the door to the Canucks needing to make some moves, to bring some guys up from Abbotsford, to sign some guys, to trade for some guys, do whatever it is they can to make this forward core sustainable for 24-25. So with that in mind, let's go out there and talk about one of the other forwards that is on the market and that is publicly being shopped. No, it's not Jake Guentzel, like we had talked about in a few prior videos. Today we are heading over to Columbus. We're going over to Ohio, baby, because when it comes to Patrik Laine, this has been one of the guys that we have discussed at length in varying conversations surrounding other teams. Patrik Laine, ladies and gentlemen, is maybe somebody the Vancouver Canucks should target. And in order to help us out with that, we're going to go over onto an article on Canucks Army. But before we dive into that, I wanted to talk about the profile of Laine first. Just get everybody up to speed with this, because Laine, at 26 years old, is a 6'5", 216 right-handed forward who was signed on till the end of 25-26, making $8.7 million a year. He's making Crosby money. That's pretty great. Patrik Laine, the past few years, has really faltered off from the 40-goal, 70-point guy that he was with Winnipeg in his second year, but ever since then, he revitalized his career in Columbus. He started producing points. He was a point-per-game guy multiple times in a row, despite having half the amount of goals that he had scored in his earlier seasons. But Laine also developed much more of a playmaking edge rather than just being a pure one-trick pony goal scorer. He also had a pretty bad year this previous season. He was injured. He was in the NHL's Players Assistance Program. He only had 9 points in 18 games played, which is still half a point a game, but the pace was a lot worse compared to his 2 years prior. Now, I know what you may be thinking if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan. Wait a minute, Patrik Laine is making so much money. Why would the Vancouver Canucks want to go out there and do this? This is not the kind of player that could project and make the team better and maybe have some chemistry with some of these top guys. This is not the way to go. Well, let's go out there and read this Canucks Army article from Clark Corson from earlier on Friday that goes out there and asks whether or not this actually would be worth it. It cites the most recent episode of the Canucks Conversation podcast with Quads and Dale, because what they did on their show was go over the idea of Patrik Laine. Take a look at what the article reads. Laine has been a part-time player in the last 3 seasons. He's got a near $9 million cap hit, and on top of that, I have reservations that he is a bit too one-dimensional, Harmon Dale cautioned. We know how talented he is as a sniper, but he's not very quick. He's not going to be effective on the forecheck, and historically he's been poor defensively. I wonder if he can actually fit with Rick Tocchet. When we discuss the Canucks' need for additional offensive creativity, it feels like they don't have enough dynamic play drivers. Look at a player like Brock Boeser. Terrific goal scorer, but he's more of just a finisher. He's not someone carrying the puck up ice through the neutral zone himself. He's not drawing defenders and creating space for others. He's not taking a lot of that burden off of JT Miller from a play-driving perspective. When I think about the ideal winger for Elias Pettersson, for example, I want someone who can help in multiple areas besides just goal scoring. A guy like Guentzel. He's great along the boards, effective on the forecheck, helps on puck recoveries, smart defensively, and he makes a lot of little plays because of his hockey IQ that help to align and control play. or even a guy like Marty Necas. He has the speed and dynamic flair where it takes the pressure off a guy like Pettersson. Laine is an unbelievable sniper, but he is a passenger. So, Harmon opens up the segment by talking about how, in his opinion, Patrik Laine wouldn't really be too much of a positive addition for the Canucks and the Elias Pettersson line. How he doesn't really do much else when he's not scoring goals to add on significant value in comparison to some of the other guys that are available. Marty Necas is a dynamic speedster, Jake Guentzel is a scorer who can win puck battles and play with good pace, and these are aspects that Harmon is valuing over what Patrik Laine brings. Now, in response, David Quadrelli went out there and said this: how much of a distressed asset is Patrik Laine? The thing with him is the low acquisition cost is probably the most intriguing thing about this. In terms of assets, Jake Guentzel is going to basically cost the same thing to go out there and get. No one has watched him play recently since he hasn't been playing. The availability is an obvious concern. But I immediately started to worry about if he'd be a fit with Rick Tocchet. I don't want him to go out there and get Laine, but if the acquisition cost is low enough, you have to do your homework and try to pull the trigger. He's far from a plan A, but if guys start to fall off the board and you're running out of options, Laine could be a fallback option to consider, Harmondale noted. Laine has improved and becoming more well-rounded. He's doing a better job at driving play on his own, so that's a little intriguing, but there's a ton of risk that would come in taking a swing for him. And this is a fairly good perspective, I would say. It errs very heavily on the side of caution, but it does go out there and acknowledge that if the Vancouver Canucks are still trying to bolster up their forward core, Tyler Toffoli is already signed, Jake Guentzel is already signed, Marty Necas is already traded, you have so few options left at your disposal. You kind of have no choice but to look at Patrik Laine as one of these options here. And sure, his contract is huge, but at the same time, it only goes on until 2026. It's not the longest in the world, and if best case scenario Laine is actually good, then the contract could very well be worth it. You could re-sign him in 2026 to a contract that is similar to that, if not maybe just a bit lower, because he was kind of overpaid on the contract he is on right now. If it doesn't work, though, if Patrik Laine gets sent over to Vancouver, he doesn't have the kind of revival we hope he will, and he doesn't perform up to snuff, then you're only on the books till 2026. That's not that bad, admittedly, when you think about how much Laine could be getting if he were to be a free agent, and how much value he would sink on his team if his cost is not used effectively. At the end of the day, though, because there is a good enough profile in Laine that there's reason to believe in him, the Canucks have to consider this. At the very least, they have to acknowledge that the option is there, and whether or not it means they go for it as their plan A, or their plan E, or their plan Z, they still have to have it in the back of their minds. At least he is there. Sure, they would probably prefer Guentzel. Sure, they'd probably prefer Marty Necas. They'd probably prefer Toffoli. They might even prefer Ilya Mikheyev over him, because he's a lot faster. Who really knows? But Patrik Laine is one of these guys that I'm always wanting to believe in the potential of prospects, so if he does end up coming over to Vancouver and he has all these opportunities to succeed, Rick Tocchet is giving him the lectures, telling him what to do, teaching him how to play this kind of game and become more of a point scorer, then honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I would love to see what a Rick Tocchet-taught Patrik Laine would look like in the NHL. But you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of Patrik Laine getting sent over to the Vancouver Canucks? Is this an option that you think about? Is this worth going out there and pursuing if you are Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford? If not, who else would you want to see rather take that mantle as a Canucks top 6 forward next season? And which names out of the Guentzels, the Nechases, etc., do you think fits that bill the most? If it is Patrik Laine that you want, though, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. How well do you think he could play alongside of a guy like Elias Pettersson? Pettersson and Patrik, that sounds like a pretty good Scandinavian kind of pairing. And of course, you know, the pedigree there. Laine was 2nd overall 2016, Pettersson 5th overall 2017. It'd be kind of a nice fantasy mode GM kind of thing to go out there and create for your team. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of Patrik Laine getting sent over to the Vancouver Canucks? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.